The hammer fell with a crack that echoed through the dusty courthouse like a gunshot. Sold to the gentleman in the back for $37. Samuel Blackwood stepped forward, his weathered hands trembling as he reached for his leather pouch. Around him, the crowd murmured in confusion. Nobody bid on all three girls together, not ever. The smart money went for the oldest, strong enough for field work, maybe the middle one for kitchen duties. But the youngest? She was barely 8, all knees and elbows, more burden than help. But Sam had seen something in their eyes when they had been dragged onto that platform. The way the oldest girl, maybe 16, had pulled her sisters close. The defiant tilt of her chin, even as tears streamed down her dirt-streaked face. The middle sister clutching a torn rag doll. The youngest one trying to be brave, her bottom lip quivering. He'd seen that same look in his own mirror every morning for the past 2 years. The look of someone who had lost everything and was still falling. "Name's Samuel Blackwood," he said quietly to the auctioneer, counting out the coins. "Got a ranch about 12 miles north of town." The girls stood frozen on the platform. The oldest, Sarah, he had heard someone call her, stared at him with suspicion and something that might have been hope. Her sisters pressed against her sides like frightened sparrows. "You sure about this, Blackwood?" the auctioneer's voice carried across the courthouse. 3 mouths is a lot of feeding for a man living alone. Sam didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the platform and looked up at the girls. "I'm Sam," he said simply. "I've got a wagon outside. You hungry?" The youngest sister, Emma, nodded before Sarah could stop her. "We don't take charity," Sarah said, her voice stronger than her trembling hands suggested. "Good," Sam replied, tipping his hat, "because I'm not off. Airing any. I'm offering work, food, and a place to sleep. Fair trade." As he helped them down from the platform, Sam caught the whispered conversations rippling through the crowd. Widow Clarence shaking her head in disapproval, Mayor Hendricks frowning behind his spectacles, the banker's wife covering her mouth in shock. Let them talk, Sam thought. He'd been the subject of their gossip before, when his wife died in childbirth, when he'd buried their stillborn son, when he'd started drinking himself toward an early grave. But as he led the 3 sisters toward his wagon, something twisted in his chest. Maybe it was the way Emma slipped her small hand into his without fear. Maybe it was the protective way Sarah watched his every move. Or maybe it was simply the first time in 2 years he'd felt needed instead of pitied. The ride to his ranch would take 3 hours. 3 hours to figure out what the hell he was going to do with 3 orphaned sisters and a broken-down ranch that barely fed 1 man, let alone 4 souls. The ranch house sat in a valley between rolling hills, its whitewashed walls faded to the color of old bones. As Sam's wagon creaked to a stop, he saw the place through the girl's eyes. Sagging porch, weeds choking the vegetable garden his wife had once tended, shutters hanging crooked like broken promises. "It's not much," he said, climbing down from the driver's seat, "but it's got a roof and 4 walls." Sarah helped her sisters down, her eyes scanning the property, with the practiced assessment of someone who'd learned to expect disappointment. The middle sister, Mary, clutched her ragdoll tighter. Emma ran straight to the porch and peered through a dirty window. "There's a rocking chair inside," she called back, her voice bright despite everything. Sam's throat tightened. Elizabeth's rocking chair, where she'd planned to nurse their baby. He'd covered it with a sheet 2 years ago and hadn't looked at it since. "Emma, get back here," Sarah called sharply. But when Sam nodded toward the door, she followed him inside. The house was clean but cold. Sam had kept it livable out of habit more than hope. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen with a wood-burning stove, a sitting room dominated by that sheet-covered rocking chair. "You can have the 2 back bedrooms," Sam said. "I sleep in the front one. Kitchen's got supplies. Not fancy, but filling." Sarah's suspicion hadn't faded. "What's the catch?" "No catch. You help with the ranch work. Feeding chickens, tending garden, mending clothes. Mary looks old enough to help with cooking. Emma can gather eggs when the hens aren't being ornery. And in return, you get fed, clothed, and educated. There's a schoolhouse in town, though." Sam paused, remembering the whispers at the auction. "Might be some folks need time to get used to the arrangement." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "You mean they don't approve of a bachelor rancher taking in 3 girls? Think you got improper intentions." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Sam met her gaze steadily. "I buried my wife and child in the cemetery behind those hills. Lost everything I ever cared about to fever and bad luck. I'm not looking to replace what I lost, just trying to do something decent for once. Mary spoke for the first time, her voice barely a whisper. Our pa said decent men were rarer than hen's teeth. Your pa might have been right about that. Emma had wandered to the sheet-covered rocking chair and was running her small fingers along its edge. Can I see? Sam's instinct was to say no, to keep that part of his life buried, but some hing in the child's curious eyes stopped him. He walked over and gently pulled away the sheet. The chair was beautiful, carved oak with a soft blue cushion Elizabeth had sewn herself. Emma climbed up immediately, her legs swinging as she rocked back and forth. It's like a boat, she said wonderfully. Emma, Sarah's voice was sharp with embarrassment. Get down from there. But Sam held up his hand. It's all right. That chair was meant for children. Through the window, he could see dust clouds on the horizon, riders approaching fast. His stomach dropped. Word had traveled quickly from the auction. Sarah, he said quietly, take your sisters to the back bedroom. Stay there until I come for you. What's wrong? The sound of hoofbeats grew louder. Might be nothing, might be trouble. Either way, I need to handle it alone. As the girls disappeared down the hallway, Sam checked the rifle above the mantel. Outside, he counted 6 horses. 6 men from town, led by Sheriff Morrison, a fair man, but one who bent easily to political pressure. Sam stepped onto the porch as the riders approached, the rifle cradled loosely in his arms. Not a threat, but not defenseless either. Evening, Sheriff, he called out. Sam? Morrison's voice was strained. We need to talk. The 6 men formed a semicircle in front of Sam's porch, their horses snorting and pawing at the dusty ground. Behind Sheriff Morrison sat Mayor Hendricks, Banker Fuller, and 3 other prominent townsmen, all wearing expressions that mixed concern with barely concealed anger. Hell of a thing you did today, Sam, Morrison said, dismounting slowly. His hand rested on his gun belt, though his fingers weren't near the holster, yet. Don't recall doing anything illegal, Sheriff. Legal and proper ain't always the same thing, Mayor Hendricks spoke up, his voice sharp with indignation. A bachelor taking in 3 young girls? People are talking, Sam, asking questions. Let them talk. Banker Fuller leaned forward in his saddle. It's not that simple. There are protocols for orphaned children. The church has a say. The county has a say. You can't just buy 3 girls like livestock and drag them off to your ranch. Sam's grip tightened on the rifle. Those girls weren't livestock on that platform. They were human beings being sold because their daddy died of consumption and their mama ran off with a traveling preacher. Nobody else bid to keep them together. Because it's not practical, Morrison said, though his voice carried a note of sympathy. Sam, I know you mean well, but think about how this looks. 3 sisters, youngest one barely school age, living alone with a man who's been struggling since Elizabeth died. The implication hit like a physical blow. Sam's face darkened. You questioning my character, Morrison? I'm questioning your judgment, and so is half the town. Behind the sheriff, one of the townsmen Sam didn't recognize spoke up. Heard tell you've been drinking heavy since your wife passed. Man in that condition got no business raising children. Sam stepped forward, the rifle now held at the ready. Mister, I don't know who you are, but you best choose your next words careful like. Sam, Morrison's voice carried a warning. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Harder than what needs to be? You planning to take those girls from me, drag them back to town, and you split them up among whoever bids highest next week? There are proper families willing to take them, Mayor Hendricks said. The Whitmores would take the oldest for household help. Preacher Jones and his wife might take the youngest. And the middle girl. Silence stretched between them like a taut rope. That's what I thought, Sam said. You'd split them up. Turn sisters into servants for families that see them as free labor. From inside the house came the sound of a door creaking open. Sarah's voice, barely audible but determined. Mr. Blackwood? Sam didn't turn around. Stay inside, Sarah. But she stepped onto the porch anyway, Mary and Emma flanking her like tiny soldiers. Are you here to take us back? She asked Morrison directly. The sheriff's expression softened. We're just concerned about your welfare, miss. Making sure you're in a proper situation. This is proper, Sarah said firmly. First time in 2 years we've had full bellies and a warm place to sleep. First time anyone cared whether we stayed together. Emma stepped forward, still clutching her rag doll. Are you bad men? The question hung in the evening air like a challenge. Sam watched the faces of the 6 riders, seeing the conflict in their eyes. These weren't evil men. They were frightened men, convinced they were doing right while ignoring what was decent. Morrison sighed heavily. "Sam, I got to ask you to come to town tomorrow. Judge wants to speak with you about the arrangement. Make sure everything's legal and proper, and if the judge decides it isn't, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." As the riders turned their horses and began the journey back to town, Sam felt Emma slip her hand into his. Sarah stood straight beside him, her jaw set with determination. Mary clutched her doll and watched the dust clouds fade into the gathering darkness. "They're going to try to separate us, aren't they?" Sarah asked quietly. Sam looked down at the three girls who had somehow become his responsibility in the span of a single day. "They're going to try." That night, Sam built a fire in the kitchen stove and cooked the first real meal his house had seen in 2 years. Nothing fancy, salt pork, beans, and biscuits, but the girls ate like it was a feast. Emma chattered about the chickens she'd discovered in the coop. Mary quietly helped clear the table, and Sarah watched Sam's every move with cautious gratitude. After supper, Sam found himself in the sitting room, while the girls whispered in their shared bedroom. The evening stretched ahead like an empty road. For 2 years, he'd filled such hours with whiskey and bitter memories. Tonight felt different, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. Sarah appeared in the doorway, holding something behind her back. "Can't sleep," she said simply. "Me neither." She approached slowly and sat in Elizabeth's rocking chair, the same one Emma had claimed earlier. "My mama used to rock Mary in a chair like this, before she left." "How long ago was that?" 3 years, right after Papa got sick. Sarah's voice carried no self-pity, just tired acceptance. She said she couldn't watch him die, said it was too hard. Sam poured himself coffee from the pot on the stove. "Some people aren't built for hard times." "Are you?" The question caught him off guard. Sam studied the girl's face, 16 years old, but with eyes that had seen too much. "I thought I wasn't. When Elizabeth died, I figured I'd follow her pretty quick, drink myself into the grave, or just stop caring enough to keep going. What changed?" Sam considered the question while Sarah rocked gently, the chair creaking in a rhythm that sounded like a lullaby. "Saw you three on that platform today. Saw how you pulled your side. Stirs close when folks were bidding. Reminded me that maybe courage isn't about not being afraid. Maybe it's about protecting what matters even when you are afraid." Sarah brought her hand forward, revealing what she'd been hiding, a small wooden horse carved with careful detail. "Papa made this for Emma before he died. It's all we got left of him." She held it out to Sam. "I want you to have it." "Sarah, I can't." "Yes, you can." Her voice was firm. "You saved us today, not just from being separated, but from being forgotten. Emma's got hope again. Mary actually smiled when she was helping with supper. And me?" She paused, swallowing hard. "I haven't felt safe in 3 years, but tonight I do." Sam accepted the carved horse, its weight surprising in his palm. The wood was worn smooth from handling, and he could see the love in every careful detail. "Your papa was a good man. So are you." Through the window, Sam caught sight of flickering lights in the distance, torches moving along the road toward town. Too far to count, but enough to suggest more visitors might be coming. He stood and moved to the window, Sarah joining him. "They're not going to let this be, are they?" she asked. "Probably not." "What happens tomorrow when you go see the judge?" Sam turned the wooden horse over in his hands, thinking of the man who'd carved it with dying hands for a daughter he'd never see grow up. "I don't know, but I promise you this. Whatever happens, I won't let them split you three apart without a fight." Sarah nodded, then surprised him by reaching up and hugging him quickly. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing us as more than just burdens." As she headed back toward the bedroom, Sam remained at the window. The lights in the distance had multiplied, and he could hear the faint sound of voices carrying on the night wind. By morning, half the county would probably know about it. His improper arrangement. Let them come, he thought, pocketing the carved horse. He'd lost everything once before, and survived it, but these girls had given him something he hadn't expected to find again, a reason to fight for tomorrow, instead of just enduring it. From the bedroom came the soft murmur of sisters, whispering goodnight to each other. Sam smiled despite the uncertainty ahead. Whatever tomorrow brought, tonight 3 girls would sleep safe and together under his roof. That had to count for something. Judge Whitaker's courthouse was packed by 9 the next morning. Sam walked in with Sarah, Mary, and Emma flanking him, their Sunday dresses clean but patched. The crowd parted like water, some faces showing curiosity, others barely concealed hostility. In the front row sat the town's most prominent families, the same ones who had sent riders to his ranch the night before. "Samuel Blackwood," Judge Whitaker called out, his voice echoing off the wooden walls. "Approach the bench with your wards." Sam had known Judge Whitaker for 15 years. The man was fair but practical, more concerned with law than justice when the two conflicted. "I understand there's some question about your arrangement with these children." "No question from me, Your Honor. I bid fair and square at a legal auction. These girls need a home, and I've got one. The question," Mayor Hendricks stood up without permission, "is whether it's proper for a single man to house 3 young girls without supervision." Judge Whitaker's gaze moved between Sam and the girls. "Miss Sarah Caldwell, Your Honor." "Miss Caldwell, do you feel safe in Mr. Blackwood's care?" Sarah's voice rang clear through the courthouse. "Safer than we've been in 3 years, sir." "Has he made any improper advances or suggestions?" "No, sir. He's been nothing but kind. Gave us our own rooms, our own beds, and the first real meals we've had, see." Ince Papa died. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Judge Whitaker raised his hand for silence. "The law is clear," he continued. "Mr. Blackwood purchased legal custody of these children through proper channels. Unless there's evidence of abuse or neglect." He paused, looking at the girls' clean faces and mended clothes, "which there clearly isn't. I see no legal grounds to overturn the arrangement." "But, Your Honor," Banker Fuller protested, "surely you can see the impropriety. What I see," Judge Whitaker's voice cut sharp as a blade, "is a man who stepped up when nobody else would. These girls were about to be split up and sold to the lowest bidders until Mr. Blackwood intervened." Emma tugged on Sam's sleeve. When he bent down, she whispered something in his ear. Sam straightened, a small smile crossing his weathered face. "Your Honor," Sam said, "Emma here has something to add." The 8-year-old stepped forward, clutching her rag doll. "Judge, sir, Mr. Sam lets me rock in his wife's chair, and he cries sometimes when he thinks we can't see, but not sad crying, happy crying, like when Mary made biscuits yesterday and they tasted just like his mama used to make." The courthouse fell silent. Even the mayor's wife dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Judge Whitaker leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Blackwood, this court recognizes your legal custody of Sarah, Mary, and Emma Caldwell. Furthermore, I'm appointing Mrs. Henderson," he nodded toward the schoolteacher, "to conduct monthly visits to ensure the children's continued welfare." Mrs. Henderson stood up from the back of the courthouse. "Your Honor, I've already spoken with the girls this morning. They're bright, healthy, and clearly well cared for. I see no issues with the arrangement." As the crowd began to disperse, some grudgingly accepting the judge's decision, others still muttering disapproval, Sam felt a hand on his shoulder. Sheriff Morrison stood behind him. "Sam," he said quietly, "for what it's worth, I think you did right." Outside the courthouse, Sam loaded the girls into his wagon while townspeople watched from a careful distance. As they rode out of town, Sarah broke the silence. "They're going to keep watching us, aren't they? Looking for reasons to say you're unfit, probably." "Good," Mary said, speaking up with rare confidence. "Let them watch. They'll see a family." Sam's throat tightened at the word. Family. He'd thought that word had died with Elizabeth and their unborn son. But maybe family wasn't just about blood or marriage. Maybe it was about people who chose to stand together when the world got difficult. That evening, as Emma rocked in Elizabeth's chair while Sarah read to her and Mary mended torn clothing by lamplight, Sam stepped onto his porch and looked out over his land. The same hills, the same valley, the same weathered ranch house. But everything felt different. Purpose had replaced emptiness. Years later, when Sarah had married the schoolteacher's son and Mary had opened her own bakery in town and Emma had become the county's first female doctor, people would still talk about the day Sam Blackwood shocked the town by refusing to let 3 sisters be separated. But on that quiet evening, with laughter drifting through his windows and the smell of Mary's cornbread filling his kitchen, Sam simply stood on his porch and watched the sun set over land that finally felt like home again. In his pocket, he fingered the carved wooden horse Sarah had given him, a reminder that sometimes the most broken people are the ones best equipped to mend others. The town had been right about one thing. What Sam did next had indeed shocked them. He'd chosen love over convention, family over reputation, and hope over the safer path of keeping his heart buried with his losses. And in doing so, he'd saved not just 3 orphaned girls, but himself. That's the end of today's story. If you found it interesting, leave a like and subscribe so you won't miss what's coming next.